Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our entitled people, where people truly believe it's all about them and who cares about anyone else. And in today's episode, one OP tells a wild story about their unhinged neighbor that just keeps getting worse and worse. And another, a tale about a smug supermarket Karen that throws a huge tantrum. The stories are wild today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Also, if you're listening to this voice, it should only be on the Dark Fluff channel, nowhere else. And for those reaching out saying they've made reports and left comments on those copycat channels, you are very much appreciated. Let's dive in. So I have two stories about my entitled neighbor that I think your listeners would enjoy. Also, my neighbor's a bit unusual. Here's a little background. Story number 1. I've been an IT person since 1993, and I have a lot of high-end equipment I use at home. I purchase business-grade equipment often instead of consumer-grade equipment. It's more expensive, but it works a lot better and it has some cool features. So when I moved into my last home we were renting, our landlord also ran a small business. He just had a single computer that he used very rarely for internet access. I was getting fiber optic service installed in the house, so I told him I would set up my equipment, and then, instead of having to pay for DSL, which was very slow, he could just use my Wi-Fi because it would be super fast. So I proceed to get my fiber optic service and then set up my 2 access points on different channels, but with the same name, so you can roam around the house and outside the whole yard and have great coverage. I then take my landlord's computer and I connect it to my Wi-Fi, and he's as happy could be. And here's where this weird entitlement comes in. As part of this, my landlord cancels his internet service, and he sends back the cruddy DSL equipment to the phone provider. A few days later, I hear a bang, bang, bang on my back door. Not front, back door. I open it up, and I find my neighbor, aka Ken. I have a confused look on my face, and I say, "Oh, hi, Ken." Cue the awkward silence. Ken then says, "Hi, so I wanted to know when you're gonna get your internet fixed." I let him know, "My internet's working fine. Why are you in my backyard?" He then looks around and he says, "I always come through the backyard here. I'm friends with your neighbor on the other side, and I always walk through the backyard as a shortcut. Doesn't matter. Anyways, I'm wanting to know." I then cut him off right there, and I say, "Please don't walk through my backyard. My wife will get scared. I also have a Great Dane, and if she's in the backyard, she's not gonna be happy you're just walking in, and I don't want you to get hurt or her to get out." Ken then says to me, "Listen, I don't care about your dog. I want to know why your internet's not working." That's when I let him know my internet's working fine. In fact, I'm using it right now. This is when Ken says, "Well, it's not working for me." At this point, it dawns on me what he's saying. I guess I was slow that day. I thought he came over because his internet wasn't working, and he figured I would know why because mine wasn't working either. He was an older man, kind of gruff with his conversational skills, but it finally dawns on me at this point. So I say to him, "Just to make sure, are you saying your internet's not working, and you're wondering if mine isn't working also?" Ken says to me, "No, my internet was working fine until a few days ago. Now, the Wi-Fi I used to connect to isn't there anymore, but I can see a really strong other Wi-Fi network named Your Wi-Fi." That's when I let Ken know, "Oh, I see. The Wi-Fi you used to connect to was the landlord's Wi-Fi for his business. I didn't know he gave you the password, but he no longer has that service. The only Wi-Fi left in this house is my Wi-Fi." Ken responds, "I see. Well, thank you for making the Wi-Fi a lot better. I hardly used to get a signal before, but now, when I look at the Wi-Fi, I see a full 5 bars from your new one. That's awesome. I just need the new password." That's when I tell Ken, I'm sorry, but I'm not giving you my Wi-Fi password. You need to get your own internet service. And this is when Ken starts raising his voice and he says, "What? You have to. I had the old Wi-Fi password, so you have to give me your new Wi-Fi password." I of course stand my ground and I say, "No, I don't. I pay for the internet connection here and I'm not giving you my Wi-Fi password." He then screams and says, "That's not fair. F you. I'm gonna call the landlord and tell him he needs to kick you out. I've known him for a long time, and don't you be surprised if you get an eviction notice on your door soon." I just tell Ken, "Have fun with that. By the way, stay out of my backyard or I'll call the cops." I then close the door as he's fuming at me, and I watch through the window as he marches out of the backyard to his yard. Of course, he doesn't close the fence all the way, so I go out there in a few minutes and close it. I also pick up my phone and call my landlord to let him know what's going on. My landlord tells me he didn't know the neighbor was using his Wi-Fi. Anyways, the story doesn't end there. A few days later, I start getting notifications from my access points that someone's trying to access the network. This is another great feature of the business class equipment I have. It sends me a notice that a device at this MAC address is trying to connect. Just to be on the safe side, I actually block his device from connecting to my access points at all, and I also disable the broadcasting of the name. That weekend, I'm out in my yard with my laptop doing some work. My neighbor sees me, and he starts talking to me, much more friendly this time. He comes up to me and says, "Hey, so I noticed your Wi-Fi is no longer online. I guess that Bill made you take it down, hey? Serves you right." I look at him with a confused face because I'm working on my laptop, which obviously means I would be connected to some type of Wi-Fi. But I guess he doesn't think this way. I let him know it's working fine. I actually talked to Bill and he laughed when I told him the story. And I actually changed it so it's not broadcasting the name anymore. That way, you don't keep trying to break into my Wi-Fi. I know you were trying to guess the password. At this point, he starts sputtering and says, "That wasn't me, it was probably someone else." Anyways, look, we got off on the wrong foot. I came across a bit hostile and I apologize. But you should really give me your Wi-Fi password. It's not fair that I used to use the old Wi-Fi and now I can't use the new one. I just tell Ken it's not fair or legal that you were stealing the Wi-Fi you used to use here. And by the way, I put up a camera in my backyard just to make sure you don't try to get through the gate again. If I see that you've been in my backyard, I will be turning over the footage to police, as you would be trespassing and I will be pressing charges. It's at this point he screams, "F you, you're a great neighbor." I ended up talking to his friend one day about the whole situation, and he told me that Ken had come to him and complained that I wouldn't give him my password, and he told Ken to buy his own internet connection and to stop being a cheapskate. I hope you enjoyed this story. Like Opie's neighbor says, Ken's gotta pony up and pay for his own internet connection instead of harassing others for their passwords. Also, you gotta love how the switch kept flipping with this guy. Nice when he's asking for something, but a total aggressive a-hole when he doesn't get what he wants. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy steals people's water from their garden hoses when they aren't around. And here's the second story about Opie's neighbor. It just gets worse, guys. So not too long after that incident, we had this one. Here's a little bit of background. The backyard of this house is L-shaped. There was a shop in the backyard that took up a part of what would normally be a lawn. There was a fence that ran from the left corner of the house straight back to where the backyard went up a hill, but it didn't make a right turn at all, and it didn't come across the other side of the lawn to close up the backyard. We would park our vehicles behind the house on a cement pad. Another thing to note is my wife is disabled and she can't drive our vehicles. This is important for incident number one. Incident number one is your cars are in my way. So I'm at work one day, and I have my car with me, but our wheelchair-accessible van is parked in our parking area behind the house, near the back lawn. My wife calls me on this day really upset. The next-door neighbor, Ken, has banged on our back door, after I told him to stop going in the backyard. When my wife talked to him through the window, he demanded that we move our van because he needs to get his tractor out of his backyard. Of course, my wife's upset how rude the neighbor is. In addition, I have no clue at all what he's talking about. Why would he need us to move our van in order for him to get his tractor out? She told him that she couldn't drive the van, and after going back and forth with him, she finally closes the window and ignored him, and he went away. So when I got home from work, I went to his house and I talked to him and I find out what's going on. What I find out is that he parks his tractor up the hill, at the end of both of our yards. And because of the angle of the hill and it getting higher on his property, the guy always drove his tractor down the hill into my side of the backyard, out over the lawn, through the car pad, and down my driveway, and then over to his house to use it. Of course, since we've moved in and we park our cars on the car pad, they're in the way. Trying to be a friendly neighbor, I told him that I would be more than happy to move my vehicles out of the way if he tells me ahead of time that he'll need to move his tractor. I tell him once again that I don't want him in my backyard banging on my back door at all. Come to the front door like a normal person. I also tell him that my wife's disabled and he can't just bang on the door during the day expecting her to move the van and harassing her when she won't. She can't drive the van, so she can't move it. If that wasn't bad enough, he then demands that I give him a key to our van, or let him make a copy, as he felt he should be able to take his tractor out at any time he needs to use it. And having our van parked there is not going to work for him. Now, I don't remember what I told him, but I do remember being dumbstruck for a couple of seconds at this completely absurd request. I don't even know why he thought that I was gonna give someone who I hadn't even known very long and already had a nasty run-in with a key to my van. I told him absolutely not. If he needs to get his tractor in or out, he's to call me ahead of time and arrange for it. Other than that, he was straight out of luck. He wasn't happy about the situation and he grumbled and cussed at me for a few minutes. Stuff how he's always done it that way before I moved in. That I've been nothing but trouble since moving in, and again, he'll speak to the landlord to have me evicted. He said he doesn't understand why I don't park my cars somewhere else, and that he should be able to move his tractor in and out without having to arrange with me because it's his tractor, not mine. I reminded him that yes, the tractor is his, but the backyard, the car pad, and driveway are all mine. So if he wanted to get his tractor in and out again through my backyard, he needs to follow my rules or find a different path. After a bunch more grumbling, he finally asked if I could move the van so he could get it out right now. I told him I would be happy to, but please remember to call me when he needs to bring it back in. He told me he would call me, but he would also have it out for several days as he has a bunch of yard work to do. To my surprise, he actually started calling me when he needed to move his tractor. Things were actually good at this point with the neighbor until I decided to finish fencing in the backyard. Once again, nothing says welcome to the neighborhood more than having immediate spats with your neighbor, right? And with the way he's telling OP, I liked life before you moved in, you made everything so complicated, blah blah blah. I can't even trespass. Like honestly, the guy sounds like he's never ever heard people say no to him at all. But OP does share an update to this post that says, so the next summer after the tractor thing, I wanted to enclose my backyard completely. We had 2 dogs at this point, and we just wanted to let them be dogs outside in the nice weather and not have to be supervised all the time. Plus, we wanted to put in a doggy door to let them in and out on their own. Also, A part of this fence would be on my property, not on the property line, which is important for later. So one day, I'm in my backyard and I know this project's coming up and there's no hiding it from my grouchy neighbor. So I thought, why not tell him? I had been meaning to talk to him about fencing in my backyard and that he would need to find another way to get his tractor down. I also know that I could have just said F you to the situation based on my previous run-ins with him, but I'm also the type of person who at least tries to get along with his neighbors. So I go to my fence line and I call for my neighbor. The guy comes walking over closer to me, but I have my Great Dane with me, and the guy doesn't like dogs much, so he stays a bit away from me and the fence. And this is the following conversation that happens. I also want to note, it's been a few years since this took place, so it's not word for word, just the gist of the conversation. I basically say something like, hey, just wanted to let you know that I'll be building 2 more segments to my fence and closing this backyard, so you'll need to find a different way of getting your tractor up and down from the hill. My neighbor Ken responds and says, now why are you doing that? I respond, I want to enclose it so my dogs can play out here and I don't have to worry about them. He then says, I'm not sure why that's my problem that you decided to have dogs. Your dogs are basically making my life harder. You can't put up the fence. I need to drive through your backyard. I tell him, well, it's not your backyard, and I've already gotten it cleared with my landlord, so I'm building the fence. I'm just letting you know that I'm doing it. I'm not asking for your permission. He then says, if you build a fence that blocks me, I will rip it out. To that, I say, if you do that, I'll just have you arrested for trespassing and destruction of property. He then screams at me saying, you can't build a fence. I need to go down into your backyard to get my tractor down. You have to let me keep doing that. I tell him I don't, and I'm not going to. I've now informed you of the fence that's coming. The fence guys will be here in a few days, so you need to get your tractor out now before I build it. He then says, I'm not moving my tractor today. If you build your fence, I will run it over. I tell him, then I will call the cops. I then walk away. He does yell some cuss words at me as I'm walking away, and he keeps yelling that he has the right to use my backyard. I just shake my head going into my house. The next week, the fence guys that I hire come out and they start digging holes, putting the uprights up, and filling the holes with cement. It takes a couple of days for the cement to dry, so I figured my neighbor would get the hint and move his tractor, but he doesn't. A couple of days later, the fence guys come, and they stretch the chain link fence on the uprights, and they do whatever they need to do to finish the work. They install a gate by my cars, and everything's done. That following weekend, I'm out in my backyard and my dogs are enjoying running around and I'm stress-free because I don't have to keep a constant eye on them. That's when I hear a banging on the fence and I turn to see my neighbor. Of course, the dogs go running at him and he backs off. He starts screaming at me saying, I need to get my tractor today, so what are we going to do? I tell him, I'm not gonna do anything. I warned you. You did nothing, and now you have to find another way to get it down. He then screams even more saying, no, no, no. You're required by law to let me go through your backyard. You're breaking the law by installing this stupid fence. I let him know, I don't think so, but you're welcome to call the cops and explain that to them. Let me know what they say, okay? He then says, I know what I'll do. I will tear down this fence. Since it's on the property line, I own half of this fence. I can do that. I tell him, no you can't. You and I both see that the fence runs from the corner of the house. The property line is actually about where you're standing. I built the fence on my side. He starts arguing saying, no it's not. This is the property line. It's where the fence is. I just let him know, okay, but if you touch that fence, I will call the cops on you just as a warning. After that, he went in the house and he never touched my fence. I did see him get his tractor down by driving over his flower beds and garden, which did make me smile. A month or two later, I did see a survey crew out, so I went and talked to them. Apparently, the neighbor had called the county and he tried to complain about the fence, and he actually tried to find out if he could take it down. They said they would send a survey crew out to mark the property line. Well, they did. And guess what? The property line was right about where I said it was. When the neighbor saw the orange painted markings that clearly show the fence was on my property, the guy lost his mind. He just stopped talking to me for a while, and eventually, he moved out. So buckle up, because this is by far one of my favorite Karen incidents that happened. I work at this little grocery store that sells a bunch of specialty items, like fancy rice, imported spices, all that good stuff. It's not a huge chain or anything. It's a locally owned store with a chill owner who's basically everyone's favorite uncle. Now, about the owner is he's honestly one of the nicest humans alive. He treats his employees like actual people, imagine that. And he's always friendly with customers. Like, he'll chat about their day, recommend recipes, talk about their family, all that stuff. But here's the problem. Because he's so nice, people do assume that one friendly 5-minute chat means they're now best friends with him. You know the type. People that say, "Oh, yeah, we're friends. He knows me, so give me a discount." So the day this happened, some guy called the store asking about a very specific type of rice, like fancy, limited edition rice that happened to be on sale. My coworker answers the phone, checks the inventory, and tells the dude, "Yeah, we've got a few bags left," which should have been the end of story, right? Wrong. With the sale of things, people tend to buy it up. Common sense. So by the time the guy shows up, which was hours later, mind you, that rice, unsurprisingly, sold out. He storms in around 6 p.m. and he walks right up to my coworker and he says, "Hey, I called earlier about this rice, so-and-so brand. Can you bring me 3 bags? And my coworker, bless his soul, goes, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but those are sold out now." And this is when the man just explodes. He loses it and says, "What do you mean sold out? I called this morning and I asked about the rice. You told me you had it." My coworker explains, very calmly I might add, that yes, he did call, but he never placed an order or paid. He just asked about the rice. The store can't exactly hold a bag just because someone said they might come get it. He just screams at my coworker saying, "You people are unbelievable. I called and I said I'd come. That means it should have been reserved for me." And I thought to myself, this isn't a wedding venue, it's a grocery store. So I step up, smile, and I ask, "Hey, what seems to be the problem here? How can I help?" Which was a big mistake. The guy turns to me and he starts going off saying, "This is horrible customer service. I called this morning and I told you people I was coming. You lied to me and I will be reporting you to the owner. He's my friend." Now this, of course, is the battle cry of every entitled customer on earth. So I ask for clarification because I can't help myself. I say, "Oh, you're friends with the owner." He shouts, "Yes, don't make me call him right now." And I kid you not, the guy whips out his phone and he dials. He then slams his phone on the counter, glares at me and says, "He must be busy, but I'll tell him how rude you are. Just go check your storeroom to see if you have some. I know you have some. Check it again." Right at this point, I'm done. My patience is gone. I've been polite, I've been professional, but this man doesn't back down. I turn dramatically towards the storeroom door. I push the door open, and I say loud enough for everyone to hear, "Hey, the owner's friend is here. He wants so-and-so brand of rice, so bring him a bag." Hearing me say that, the man blinks, and he tells me to lower my voice. But I don't. I cup my hands around my mouth, and I keep going saying, "I said the owner's friend is here. He needs his rice." By now, my coworkers are trying so hard not to laugh, and customers are staring. The man once again tries to tell me to please stop shouting as it's embarrassing him. His face is basically red, like tomato red. He sputters something about me being disrespectful and unprofessional, and then storms out of the store, muttering under his breath. The second he leaves, my coworkers are crying with laughter. A few hours later, the owner comes in the store. Apparently, the guy actually did call him to complain. They actually knew each other, and he said I was rude and I mocked him publicly. My boss just said, "Oh, yeah, sounds like something he would do," and then told me, "Good job standing your ground." So the moral of the story is just because you know the owner doesn't mean you're getting special treatment. Ain't that the truth? And seriously, good on OP for putting that entitled man in his place. And for the owner to have OP's back even though they did know each other. Like OP said, what a wonderful boss. And guys, what's not a great boss is this last post where OP wonders if they crossed the line by quitting their job. Listen to this one. I'm a 29-year-old female and I work as a waitress at a restaurant with a point system. It's 1 point if you're late, 3 points to call off with notice, and 5 points for calling off within 4 hours of your shift. This is fine with me as I have no points this year, and I've only called off once since 2018. I'm the type who covers shifts, stays late, and generally just do my job. That said, last week, I end up calling off and I was out for a week due to being hospitalized in the ICU. Horrible infection. I let my boss know at 2 a.m. that I was being sent out by helicopter, and I informed her of everything going on. Well, today was my first day back. I'm not 100% yet, but like many places that run crappily, we're short-staffed. When I came in today, I opened and got to work. My boss came in 2 hours later and she calls me into her office. She then informed me that I was getting 8 full points. I was losing my discounts and bonuses for 90 days and I was on probation. Hearing her say that to me, I was dumbfounded. I told her I wasn't signing the papers as it was out of my control. She then said if I didn't, I would be terminated. That's when I told her not to bother and I walked out. I'm now getting calls and texts from her and my coworkers saying how badly they need me, and I was an a-hole for quitting over something so small. My husband thinks I was in the right because it was ridiculous that I was getting punished for almost dying. So am I the a-hole for quitting on the spot? Yeah, OP's definitely not the a-hole in my opinion. And guys, I just wanted to share this post because ridiculous, right? Like some nasty bosses out there. Like in my mind, it is so absurd that OP was penalized for a literal life or death situation. And I'm glad they quit and screwed over everyone because they deserve so much better than that. And the top comment on this post with over 33,000 upvotes says, "You are not the a-hole. You were so sick that you needed to be airlifted by helicopter and relocated to seek special treatment outside of where you currently live, which is well outside of your control. Then, you went above and beyond by keeping your boss in the loop the whole time, as if your boss were a part of your family, something you should not have had to do. Lastly, as a favor to them, even though you're not 100% better, you still made the effort to come in. And what do? They take away your perks and they threaten you with termination. Not only are you not the a-hole, but you should also be proud of yourself. You stood up for yourself, and it would seem you called their bluff since now they want you back. Do not go back. I have a family member, a cousin who's working as a server in a restaurant, and I would really love to see them do the same. Again, guys, it is so mind-boggling how some bosses don't recognize the workers that often go above and beyond. Like if I were in OP's boss's shoes, take all the time you need, rest, recover, we value you as a hard-working employee. Like the whole 8 points thing and threatening OP with termination, that boss deserves all the bad stuff that happens with OP gone. Like never ever ever threaten to fire people you can't afford to lose. Guys, let me know your thoughts on this post. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r / entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r / entitled people episode. Another one where Karens are fighting against people and they're losing big time. It's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.